Good morning, students. I'm happy to see you, everyone. I welcoming you the online class semester 4 MA Political Science. I wish to dealing with the paper 3, that is international organizations and global issues. Today I am discussing about the lesson Horizon and the development of international organizations. Before I'm explaining about this lesson, already I have discussed a few lessons before this talk. That is definition, meaning of international organizations, concept of international organization, role, functions, and significance of international organizations. Okay, now today I'm presenting the lesson that is origin and development of international organizations. In this topic, there are two types of that is number one, utopian aspirations, philosophical and ideological roots. Number two, practical steps and historical experience. Okay, so I'm sharing PowerPoint presentation. So please watch and listen carefully this lesson. Okay, I hope you are all safe in this pandemic situation. సో అందరూ కూడా ధైర్యంగా ఉండండి. ధైర్యమే కరోనాకి వెలుగుడు. ఈరోజు చాలా మంది ధైర్యాన్ని కోల్పోయి తమ ప్రాణాలు వదిలిపెడుతున్న పరిస్థితులు మనం చూస్తున్నాం. సో ఎనివే we must follow the precautionary methods. It is useful to our healthy life and our society. Okay. Some technical problem is here. So I will try to avoid this technical issue. Some job. Yes. Now it is presenting. Okay. Adikavi Nannaya University, MSN Campus, Kakinada, Department of Political Science and Public Administration invites you to online class. Okay. I am Joseph Stephen Komara, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science and Public Administration, Adikavi Nannaya University, MSN Campus, Nannaya. Okay. Today I am dealing with this topic. So it is very essential to knowing about the establishment or the origin and development of international organization. Okay. So in these international organizations, in the true sense, it is originated in the 19th century. In the true sense, it was originated in the 19th century. And the real and large ones came into existence in the 20th century. And the ideas and practices upon which modern international organizations are founded go back to ancient times. The origin and development of international law, diplomatic practice, procedure for the settlement of disputes, as well as international organizations. So the basic concept, that is the origin of international organization. Actually, it was originated in the 19th century, but it came into existence in the 20th century. The purpose of establishment of international organizations, what are the ideas, what are the aims and objectives, what are the practices. So these are all upon which modern international organizations are founded go back to ancient times. So many activities are happened in ancient times. That is why we look back to the ancient times for the concept of international organizations. The origin and development of international law, అంతర్జాతీయ న్యాయం, diplomatic practice, దౌత్య నీతి, procedure for the settlement of disputes, వివాదాలు పరిష్కరించుకోవడానికి ఉన్నటువంటి ఒక ప్రక్రియ, the procedure for the settlement of problems or disputes. These are all under the taking by the international organizations. So the international organizations' main duty is to maintaining international law and order among the nation states and proclaiming the diplomatic practice and to maintain procedure for the settlement of disputes. So this is one of the important aspects of origin and development of international organization. There are two sets of sources inspired the growth and development of these international organizations. The first one consists of theory, spirit, ideas, and utopian aspirations. The second one contains practice, substances, reality, steps, and concentrate historical experience of previous years. Keeping in view these two sources, the historical development of international organizations is studied into 2 points. That is, utopian aspirations, philosophical and ideological roots. That is A. And B, practical steps and historical experience. So there are two sets of sources inspired the growth and development of international organizations. The first one consists of theory, సిద్ధాంతం, spirit, దాని యొక్క పనితీరు, దాని యొక్క గొప్పతనం, ideals, ఆదర్శాలు, ideas, ఆలోచనలు, and utopian aspirations. Utopian aspirations means idealistic reformer. It is an idealistic reform observations or objectives. వాస్తవానికి ఆచరణలో వీలు కానటువంటి సంస్కరణ అభిలాష, అంటే చెప్పడానికి చెప్తాం కానీ ఆచరణలో సాధ్యం కానటువంటి వాటిని యూటోపియన్ ఆస్పిరేషన్స్ అని చెప్పేసి. The second one contains practice, substances, reality, steps, and concentrated historical experience of previous years. గత సంవత్సరాలలో ఎట్లాంటి ప్రాక్టీస్, ఎట్లాంటి Material meaning also materialization, substances. Reality. What is the reality to establish these organizations? What are the steps to take in this establishment of international organizations? So these are all the second source. So keeping in view these two sources, historical development of international organizations is studied into two parts. That is, number one, Ethiopian aspirations, philosophical and ideological roots. Number two, practical steps and historical experience. And now, the Ethiopian aspirations are divided into four parts. Number one, development and rejection of war. Number two, world unity, different ways of world order. Number four, peace plans for confederacies or political unions. Okay, today I'm explaining about these four headings. Okay, number one, development and the rejection of war. Actually, the origin of international organizations. One may first go to the city-state system of ancient Greece. You know about the administration of Greece, ancient Greece, that is city-state system, Nagara Rajyam. They followed city-state system by the reading the basis of Thucydides. Thucydides means he was belongs to Athens. He was one of the historian of Athens. So Thucydides, who has given an interesting description of the Peloponnesian War. That is, Peloponnesian War was happened in before Christ 431 to 404 between two city states, that is Sparta and Athens. Actually, this Peloponnesian War was happened between two city states. So one of the ancient Greek war. It is a ancient Peloponnesian war means ancient Greek war. It dealing a league led by Athens against a Peloponnesian league led by Sparta. Peloponnesian war or Peloponnesian league was led by Sparta, and ancient Greek Delian league led by Athens. So this is the historical evidence of Peloponnesian War. And number two, and another one is the Greeks had become involved in the intricacies of international bargaining, such as alliances, negotiations, dependencies, threats, and bribes, and cooling off periods. In the time, in the ancient Greek had become involved in the intricacies of international bargaining. So that is alliances, negotiations, dependencies, threats, bribes, and the cooling off periods. These are all happened in the ancient Greek period. So in this connection, the ancient scholars like Greek scholars like Plato, he was born in 427 BC and he was died in 347 BC before Christ. And Aristotle, he was born in 384 BC and he was died in 322. So these ancient Greek scholars deplored war but accepted it as inevitable or necessary under some circumstances. They lamented about their city state. That is why they deplored war but accepted. తప్పనిసరి పరిస్థితుల్లో వాళ్ళు it is inevitable or necessary under some circumstances. So during the Middle Ages, Christian philosopher like Thomas Aquinas, he was born in 1225 AD and he was died in 1274. He deplored war as inhuman and wasteful, but accepted. St. Augustine's doctrine of just wars and approved the crusades. In ancient days, there was crusades between the Muslim and Christian countries. In Telugu, crusades means Matayuddham. St. Augustine's doctrine of just wars. And in the Middle Ages, the Christian philosopher Thomas Aquinas deplored war. The declaration means lamentation. ఒక రకమైనటువంటి విలపిస్తూ చెప్పినటువంటి పరిస్థితి. అంటే ఈ యుద్ధాల వల్ల వచ్చినటువంటి ప్రయోజనం కంటే నష్టం ఎక్కువ. So this is the brief explanation about deploration and rejection of war. Actually, so many another points are also under this development and rejection of war. That is, many philosophers, like ancient Chinese philosopher Confucius, he was also deplored the use of coercion and pleaded a good fight and moderation as the key doctrines of interstate relations. So, interstate relations. ఇరు దేశాల మధ్య మంచి సన్నిహిత సంబంధాలు అనేవి అత్యవసరం అని చెప్పి కన్ఫ్యూషియస్ చెప్పాడు. Confucius was born in 551 BC and was died in 479. And another Chinese philosopher, Mo Ti, he belongs to 5th century BC. He was a totally rejected war and a criminal and economically wasteful expenditure. In his statement, Moti, according to the Chinese philosopher Moti, who belongs to 5th century, he was declared a statement about war, that is, it is a criminal and economically wasteful expenditure. యుద్ధం అనేది ఒక క్రిమినల్, నేరపూరితమైనటువంటిది, ఆర్థికంగా దిగజార్చేటువంటిది అని చెప్పి. So another Dutch scholar, Desiderius Erasmus, and American philosopher William Ellery Canning and English publicist Norman Angell expressed clearly their indictment and rejection of war and to promoted humanism, pacifism and internationalism. So these are all the philosophers to promote humanism and internationalism. అంటే అంతర్జాతీయ వాదాన్ని కలిగి ఉండాలి, హ్యుమానిజం మానవత్వవాదాన్ని కలిగి ఉండాలి, ఈ యుద్ధాల వల్ల మనకు వచ్చేటువంటి ప్రయోజనం, there is no use to fight with others అనేది వాళ్ళ యొక్క ఒపీనియన్ గా చెప్పచ్చు. సో దిస్ ఇస్ ద డెవలప్మెంట్ అండ్ rejection of war. So they totally rejected the war, the concept of war. So they did not going to war. So to decrease the war, to increase the establishment of peace. That is the primary duty to the international organization. That is why the international organizations were established. Okay. And number 2, world unity and alternative to war. Some thinkers, instead of simply condemning and repudiating was war, presented a variety of alternatives. In this connection, the Italian poet Dante Alighieri looked back to the golden age of Roman Empire with admiration and nostalgia. Okay, so golden age of Roman Empire, అవిభాజ్య రోమన్ సామ్రాజ్యం పరిపాలన అనేది ఒక గోల్డెన్ ఏజ్ గా చెప్పొచ్చు అనేది ఈ ఇటాలియన్ పోయిట్ దాంతే అలిగరి యొక్క అభిప్రాయం. సో ఇన్ హిజ్ అడ్మిరేషన్ అండ్ nostalgia, that is homesickness. For Dante Alighieri, incarnation of the Roman Empire in the form of old empire, it was the most appropriate way to universal peace. It was most appropriate way to establish universal peace. So that is the main agenda. He incarnated this form of universal peace. And the Cynics and the Stoics philosophies were prevalent in the late centuries of the pre-Christian era and the early centuries of the Christian era in both Greece and Rome. Actually, there was 2 types. Greece, so many philosophers are born in Greece, Athens, and the influence of Christianity in Rome. That is why cynics, that means it is a selfish, it is a self-interest. Stoics, it is the Athens school of philosophy. So it was prevalent in the late centuries of the pre-Christian era. So Christian era mundu and the early centuries of the Christian era. So Greece లోను రోమ్ లోను దీనికి సంబంధించినటువంటి విషయాలను గమనించవచ్చు. So both these advocated cosmopolitanism. Actually, cosmopolitanism means it is universalism. సార్వజనీనమైనటువంటిది. సో ప్రపంచంలో అన్ని దేశాల్లోనూ ప్రజలు నివసిస్తున్నారు. The people are living in all the countries in the world. So సార్వజనీనత్వం, cosmopolitanism. So the Cynics and Stoics, both these advocated cosmopolitanism. The Cynics' ideas were mainly negative and rejected patriotism and need for separate states. Actually, the Cynics means it is a self-interest, it is a selfish idealism. So that is why Actually, selfish ఉన్న వాళ్ళ దగ్గర ఏముంటది నెగిటివ్ ఆస్పెక్ట్. So that is why the cynics ideas were mainly negative, and they rejected patriotism, దేశభక్తిని వాళ్ళు ఒప్పుకోరు, and need for separate states. ఎవరికి వాళ్ళు పరిపాలించుకోవడానికి separate states కావాలనేది వీళ్ళ పొజిషన్. And the Stoics gave a positive view based on the idea of humans joined by universal reason in a universal society. The Stoics gave a positive view based on the idea of humans joined by universal reason in a universal society. So the Athens school of philosophy, that is Stoics, it gave a positive sense, and the idea of humans joined by universal reason and a universal society. విశ్వజనీనమైనటువంటి మానవాళికి అందరూ కూడా దీనిలో భాగమై ఉన్నారు అని చెప్పడం, it reflects a positive sense. So anyway, both Cicero and Seneca represented Roman Stoics. There are two persons, Cicero and Seneca. They represented Roman Stoics. Okay, and another one is third one is different ways of world order. Since 16th century, idealists have put forward several approaches to world order, such as the development of international law, decolonization, disarmament, and free trade. So, different ways of world order. Since 16th century, idealists put forward several approaches to establish a good world order. So, the development of international law, it is the essential need. And another one is decolonization. Many countries, many areas occupied by the British Empire. అందుకనే రవి అస్తమించని సామ్రాజ్యం అని కూడా మనం పిలుస్తాం. So the British Empire, the British government ruled so many colonies, so many states, so many countries. That is why it called as colonies. So in the purpose, in the concept of decolonization, it is one of the important ones. So the British government has had involving or to వాళ్ళు అంటే ఏ ప్రాంతాలను అయితే వాళ్ళు ఆక్యుపై చేశారో ఆ ప్రాంతాలను తిరిగి వాళ్ళకే అధికారాన్ని అప్పచెప్పడం, ఆ ప్రాంతాల మీద, ఆ కాలనీస్ మీద వాళ్ళకు ఉన్నటువంటి ఆ రైట్స్ ని విత్డ్రా చేసుకోవడం. సో దట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ డీకాలనైజేషన్. అండ్ డిసార్మమెంట్, నిరాయుధీకరణ, టు రెడ్యూస్ ద ఆర్మమెంట్స్, and free trade. So it is one of the important aspects. So in the aspect that is free trade, ఎప్పుడైతే స్వేచ్ఛ వ్యాపార వాణిజ్యం అనేది ఉంటుందో ఆటోమేటిక్గా దేశాల మధ్య to maintain or to establish a good relations. Okay, Hugo Grotius believed international law is essential in the relations among nations, and that it serves as a limitation upon sovereignty. So every nation has got sovereignty, every nation has independence. That is why they followed or they declared sovereignty. ఎవరికి వాళ్ళు వాళ్ళ దేశాలని స్వాతంత్ర్యాన్ని ప్రకటించుకోవడమే కాదు, మాకు అంటూ ఒక సార్వభౌమాధికారం ఉందని చెప్పుకునే ప్రయత్నం చేస్తారు. So according to Hugo Grotius, believed international law is essential in the relations among nations. దేశాల మధ్య ఒక అంతర్జాతీయ న్యాయం అనేది అత్యవసరం అని చెప్పారు. అందుకే ఇట్ సర్వ్స్ యాజ్ ఏ లిమిటేషన్ ఆన్ సావర్నిటీ. సో ఎవరి సార్వభౌమాధికారాన్ని ధిక్కరించి మరొక దేశం యొక్క సార్వభౌమాధికారాన్ని కాదనేటువంటి పరిస్థితి మరో దేశానికి ఉండకూడదు. To respect each other, to honor their sovereignty. So that is the aspect. And Jeremy Bentham, in his essay, The Principles of International Law, the Principles of International Law. In this lesson, in this essay, he stressed, Jeremy Bentham stressed on the liberation of all colonies and general disarmament as twin fundamental principles for attaining world order. So he was proclaiming, he was declared a twin fundamental principles for attaining world order. That is liberation of all colonies, liberation of all colonies. And another one is disarmament, general disarmament. So he stressed, Jeremy Bentham stressed two fundamental principles, that is the liberation of all colonies. అన్ని దేశాలకి స్వాతంత్ర్యాన్ని, స్వేచ్ఛా స్వాతంత్ర్యాన్ని ఇవ్వాల్సిందే. To give independence to all colonies and to reduce the armaments. That is why it reflects to disarmament. So this is the basic fundamental twin principles of Jeremy Bentham. So it will follow the twin principles of any nation. It is reflect to the attaining world order. ఎప్పుడైతే ఈ రెండు ప్రిన్సిపల్స్ పాటిస్తామో, ఎదుటి వారి స్వాతంత్ర్యాన్ని హానర్ చేస్తామో, అప్పుడే ప్రపంచం ఒక సమతా స్థితిని కలిగి ఉంటుంది అని చెప్పచ్చు. ఇట్స్ ఎ బ్యాలెన్సింగ్ పవర్. And Richard Cobden, a member of Parliament of Britain, regarded free trade as the main approach to world peace in the mid-19th century. Richard Cobden, a member of Parliament of Britain, said about the free trade, Swechha Vyapara Vanijyam. It is one of the main approach to establish world peace in the mid-19th century. Okay, and the British economist J. Hobson, in his imperialism, Samrajyavadi Gurinchi, British economist J. Hobson says about severely criticized colonialism on both economic and political grounds. So Hobson strongly criticized colonialism and for the sake of on both economic and political grounds. ఎట్టి పరిస్థితుల్లోనూ ఎకనామిక్ అండ్ పొలిటికల్ గ్రౌండ్స్, ఆర్థిక పరంగా, రాజకీయ పరంగా మనకున్నటువంటి అధికారాన్ని ఉపయోగించుకుని పరిపాలిస్తామంటే కుదరదు అని చెప్పి. సో ఇట్ మస్ట్ ఎవ్రీ కాలనీ హ్యాస్ డీకాలనైజ్డ్, ప్రతి దేశం కూడా డీకాలనైజ్ అవ్వాలని చెప్పి అనేక ఇంపీరియలిజం అనేటువంటి గ్రంథంలో చెప్తున్నారు. So Hobson, in a way, envisaged the mandate and the trusteeship systems of the League of Nations and the UNO by pleading international responsibility for colonial states to ensure against exploitation of subjugated people. Okay. చాలా మంది అణచివేయబడినటువంటి ఎక్స్ప్లాయిటెడ్ పీపుల్ చాలా మంది ఉన్నారు. సో అట్లాంటి వాళ్ళ విషయంలో లీగ్ ఆఫ్ నేషన్స్, some trusteeship systems, that is League of Nations. It was established after the end of First World War, but meanwhile it is failed. And then another international organization was established, that is United Nations Organization in 1945, October 24. So these are all trusteeship systems, and it pleading international responsibility for colonial states to ensure against exploitation. ఏవైతే అణచివేయబడినటువంటి ప్రజలు, అణచివేయబడినటువంటి దేశాలు ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో వాళ్ళ పక్షంగా ట్రస్టీషిప్ సిస్టమ్స్ అనేవి రావాలని చెప్పి అతను అభిప్రాయపడ్డాడు. అండ్ fourth one is peace plans for confederacies or political unions. A number of peace plans for international machinery were proposed involving the creation of confederacies or loose political unions of one type or another, but none supported the idea of a superstate or world federation with the direct representation of citizens and their governments. So a number of peace plans for international machinery proposed involving the creation of confederacies. సమైక్య ప్రభుత్వాలు అనేకమైనవి మనం చూస్తున్నాం. Or loose political unions of one type or another. None supported the idea of a super state or world federation. ప్రపంచ సమైక్య ప్రభుత్వం with the direct representation of citizens and their governments. This is one of the peace plan, and according to Pierre Du Bois, proposed an alliance of Christian rulers under French leadership. He suggested that all disputes be settled by arbitration with final appeals to the Pope. So arbitration means like it looks like a court. So there were so many disputes arised between two countries or other countries. In that situation, Pierre Du Bois suggested all disputes be settled by arbitration or court with the final appeals to the Pope. Okay, and in 1623, another Frenchman, Americ Cruz, emphasized the interdependence of states and advocated a universal organization, not limited to Christian rulers, mainly for the promotion of trade. So another Frenchman, Americ Cruz, in 1923, he emphasized the interdependence of states. ఒక దేశం మరొక దేశంతో ఆధారపడి ఉండగా తప్పని పరిస్థితి, and he advocated a universal organization. So he thinking about a strong universal organization or international organization. Actually, in that time, many Christian rulers or many Christian countries are there. So not only Christian countries, many other countries are also in the world arena. That is why it's mainly for the promotion of trade. So వ్యాపార వాణిజ్యాన్ని పెంపొందింపు చేసుకోవాల్సినటువంటి ఎసెన్షియాలిటీని చెప్తా ఉన్నారు. In 1694, William Penn published his essay toward the present and future of Europe, and in 1712, the Abbé de Saint-Pierre brought his plan of perpetual peace. So the William Penn published his essay toward the present and future of Europe. Abbé de Saint-Pierre brought his plan of perpetual peace. As absolute monarchs are not likely to promote peace. Actually, the monarchs, నియంత్రుంటరే వాళ్ళు, they are not likely to promote peace. వాళ్ళు ఇష్టపడరు. But according to Comte, envisaged in perpetual peace. a world federation made up of republican states as the ideal basis for peace. And prior to League of Nations, the most comprehensive and revolutionary proposal for international peace missionary was given by William Ladd. He was an American Quaker in his essay on a Congress of Nations. Actually, before the establishment of League of Nations, a most comprehensive revolutionary proposal for international peace missionary was given by William Ladd. He was the first person to thinking about the establishment of international organization. That is why he mentioned his essay on a Congress of Nations in 1840. William Ladd proposed the creation of a Congress of Nations and a Court of Nations with legislative and judicial powers to develop and apply international law. So William Ladd, creation of Congress of Nations and a Court of Nations with the legislative and judicial powers to develop and apply international law. So this is the brief explanation about the utopian aspirations, philosophical and ideological groups. Okay, this is under the origin and development of international organizations. Okay, in the next class, I will explain about the practical steps and historical experience. Practical steps and historical experience. B. Okay, in that practical steps and historical experience, there are different ages. That is, during ancient times, during Middle Ages, during 17th and 18th centuries, during 19th century. So these are all the next topic. I will give you the detailed explanation. Okay. Thank you, friends. Thank you, students. Listen carefully. Listen carefully. Be careful about your health because there was a dangerous bells are ringing in our society. So please maintaining physical distance, not social distance, and you must wear mask. So don't worry, be courageous. Please utilize this class. Please, after listening this lesson, you must read and write about these slides one by one. Okay, it is very useful to semester and examinations. Okay, students, if you have any doubts, please call me. I will clarify your doubts. Don't be neglect. Be serious. Be serious. Okay, thank you, students. Thank you, one and all.